Hi there. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Fearapeutic Lens, where my wife Renee will use her expertise and share some insights that she has about the psychology of films or video games of the horror genre, though we may branch out in the future. Uh, hey, Renee, go ahead and tell them about yourself.
Good evening. I am Ryne Escher, and I am a licensed mental health professional and board certified supervisor. I've been doing mental health for about 15 years now. Got my bachelor's and my master's in mental health. And I have worked an array of different duties. So I've been inpatient psychiatric, I've done hospice, I've done basically everything in between, and I'm currently doing private practice and supervision. And I'm a huge nerd and I love these things. And this is so much fun for me. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening.
Okay. And I'm her husband, Nox. We've been married 16 years and we have a beautiful baby boy together. My role in this is that I bounce questions off of Renee in order to get the layman's perspective on things. I also put all of this together, so if this all looks a little free trial to you, that is because it is. I have never done this before. This is our second episode, and we are learning as we go. Everything you see is subject to change and hopefully improvement. So for tonight, we are discussing Audition. It is a 1999 Japanese psychological horror film directed by Takashi Miike, written by Daisuke Tengen, and adapted from the 1997 novel of the same title by Ryu Murakami. Heads up, this is not a review. We are operating under the assumption that you are familiar with the movie and you're looking for some extra insights on it. If you haven't seen the movie, you might still get some entertainment out of us, but we do recommend that you watch it because we both enjoyed it. Unlike our last video, Audition is a recent watch for both of us. Our first comment on our last video from Mr. Singh7465 suggests that we do Audition next. And since it was already on our list of films to check out, it seemed like a good idea. So, a funny story. I first heard about Audition a long time ago during was Bravo's 101 Scariest Moments in Film, and Audition ranked number 11, and it was amazing because you had Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and John Landis praising this movie, and it kind of sort of was laying the inspirations for what essentially became known as the torture porn genre, because Eli Roth went on to make Hostel, and I think was it James Wan said similar things about inspirations for Saw, but yeah. And so yeah, it's a movie I've known of for decades now, and had not gotten around to watching until this past November. We planned on doing this episode then, but then holiday stuff got in the way, and then we both kept getting sick, and then just our schedules were fighting against us. And we were actually going to film this last night, but then we had technical issues, and that is why Renee is on her, laptop built-in mic instead of her fancy mic that she uses for voice acting.
And we're also hoping to make this a lot more regular. So thanks for hanging in with us. I was really excited to do that first episode around Halloween, but oof, the holidays were rough. So yeah, stay tuned because I'm hoping that we can do this a lot more often, at least once a month. So send us any suggestions you guys have too, but we also have a list that we're going to go down.
All right, so Audition, is an interesting movie, but it starts us off. We are in a Japanese hospital room. We are introduced. We're given her name later, but this is Ryoko Aoyama, and she's dying of cancer. Her husband, already forgot his first name.
You just call him Aoyama the whole movie, so I don't get remembered.
Well, yeah, but then you get confused with his son. The Aoyama senior is Shigeharu. He is at her bedside, and there is a doctor and a nurse that are monitoring her as she seems to be on the last moments of her life. And it is very unfortunate and sad. However, we're also shown that their son together, young Shigehiko, is on his way in, and he has a nice little, model he's made of dinosaurs and a volcano. Sorry, I meant to advance to here, where there's the husband at her side. Then we have the son arriving. He's a friendly young child. He's greeting people as he passes them. However, poor Ryoko flatlines before the son arrives, and the doctor and nurse pronounce her dead and exit. And poor little Shigehiko comes in, and the father has to console him and tell him that his mother has passed.
So what I found really interesting about this scene, like I said, I actually did hospice for a very long time. So I have been in rooms like this. And unfortunately, I remember having someone go, hey, we need you to go to the hospital to tell these kids that their mom's about to die. And that was fun. Full sarcasm. Very, very sad situation. But the thing with hospice, and especially when you have cancer patients, there's kind of a certain method to death. And I don't want to say that you can predict it, but you can tell when it's getting closer and you can kind of see these things. So seeing Ryoko where she has kind of the affixed stare and those sorts of things, very common. They didn't really go into the actual nitty gritty of it, but this is what I found interesting and I think goes into the themes of the entire movie, is as soon as Ryoko dies, the doctor, the nurse, we're so sorry, and they leave, but they don't go out the regular patient door. They go like a back door, which I don't know if that's common in Japanese hospitals or not. But I thought that was so interesting because it was kind of like, okay, well, your wife died. Now we're going to go this way so then we can avoid your kid. So then we don't have to tell him anything or we don't have to be here when it's super difficult. And I think that just underlines the like theme of loneliness that I got from this movie, and we'll talk heavily on. Also think it's interesting the diorama with the dinosaurs, because again, if you've seen this movie, you know this. If you haven't, then this is a little bit of a heads up. When he grows up, the son is very obsessed with dinosaurs. So I'm kind of curious if he took some of the learning of dinosaurs in school and doing all this stuff to kind of escape the loss of his mother and deal with his grief.
Yeah, loneliness does indeed seem to be the driving force behind this film, because we get our title card drop as, you know, the father and son are walking home. Little bit of loneliness is implied here, given that the street seems almost completely deserted. You see a few cars drive by, but there doesn't seem to be anyone else walking.
Yeah, and I think that it's also, again, going back to the scene when the son first walks in and his mom is gone, you notice that Aoyama is not crying, which is fine. Like, I think that can be a normal reaction, especially after how soon his wife passed that happens. But I think it also underlies parents trying to be strong for their kids and him just like, okay, you know what? I need to do this calmly. I need to do this in a way that doesn't scare him. And then again, the scene right after is what you're seeing on the screen, and they're walking alone, very calmly, just the two of them, and kind of just, hey, we're going out in the world, just the two of us now.
Yeah, but then, so this is Shigehiko is 10 years old when this happens, and then we get a 7-year time jump. We have, Shigehiko and his father are, fishing. Out on those rocks that you see in all the what's the film company that has the water on the rocks as their title card thing? I can't remember, but it's they're doing fishing, and it's there's an interesting dialogue exchanged here where the son is essentially catching whatever he can catch, but the father is holding out for the big catch, and it's like, establishing our themes early, are we?
Yeah, but I think it's also interesting because they talk about their interests a little bit, like, I'm more interested in girls than I am with fishing. And I think it also establishes a little bit here, because Aoyama gets a call from work, that he really is trying his best to fill whatever he can with his son, since his mom is gone, and he's kind of filling the both parent roles and doing whatever he can to spend time with his kids. So I really, really like that. But like Nox said, I'm waiting for the big fish. Insert the point of the movie or the plot of the movie. um, but I think it's also interesting that he struggles with the big fish, but to him it's worth it. So that's how he kind of goes about everything.
Yep. So, Shigeharu lands the big fish and they take it home and they cook it up for dinner. And the son actually kind of displays that, he does have a lot of interesting general biology knowledge because he talks about the fish that they caught. It's a kind of fish that starts off male, but then once it reaches a certain size, becomes hermaphroditic. And then due to environmental impact, it will switch to male or female. And that's just kind of a little trivia that the son shares in between all the dialogue. Is like, hey dad, you did a good job raising me, but you seem worn out and you seem lonely. Are you thinking about remarrying when I leave for college?
I also think it's funny in that scene when they're talking about the hermaphroditic parts of the fish. She's, well, what was this? Was it a male or a female? And Shigehiko's like, remember we saw the ovaries? Like, do you know anything about women? Which again, I thought was a very snide remark about, hey, you're gonna have a really hard time in this movie trying to find somebody to marry. But I do find it interesting that it isn't until Shigehiko is going off to college that the thought of even remarrying comes into play. It sounds like he's never really had a relationship since his wife died and has been dedicated to his son. But again, themes of loneliness.
Well, there does seem to have been one relationship he had, but that wasn't serious, and maybe he wasn't as invested in it as the other person was. But we'll address that when it comes up, because then we follow Shigehiko to work, and he's he's production. They do his side mostly does news reports and documentary stuff. And he goes and talks with his editor, and there's like this footage from a nightclub. And we get the interesting comment from the editor, this gentleman in the red right here. I don't think he gets a name, but he comments, the people in the footage, they can't be happy. And Shigehiko's like, why? And the editor comments like, well, everyone in Japan is unhappy, sorry. And Shigehiko's like, well, are you unhappy? And the editor turns to him, big smile on his face, and says, aren't you?
Well, and I also think it's interesting in this scene when they're going over the news report and it's the nightclub. I think the editor makes a comment of, man, this looks like a cult. And then again, the comment of, oh, they go here because they're lonely and they're unhappy and those sorts of things. But I think it's so interesting how much they make loneliness sound like this, I don't know, almost like terminal illness that everybody's trying to avoid by doing things that normal people shouldn't. Kind of an interesting theme that I saw in the movie too.
But then we have Shigehiko is end of the workday for him. He's going to go and meet one of his friends, and on his way out, his assistant announces to him that, hey, she's getting married. And he's like, oh, hey, congratulations. Who is he? And she's like, oh, yeah, you don't know him. He's like, oh, okay, well, congratulations. And little awkward, and then, she goes back into the office and he leaves.
Actually, she doesn't go back into the office. He sits in the elevator and she just stares at him until the doors close. So it's kind of obvious right in the beginning. This was not just a coworker letting you know that I'm getting engaged. Yay!
I'm sorry. Details I've missed. I do not know Audition as well as I know The Ritual, because Ritual was literally one of our favorite movies. We watched it a lot. This movie I've technically watched 3 times through now, so there's some details I missed. I apologize.
Nobody's perfect. It's fine. But yeah, when you said, there was one relationship, I don't think this was a relationship. I think they had a fling, maybe 1 or 2 trysts. And she definitely wanted it to be more, but I think he's so in love with his wife. And even though she's gone, he just hasn't thought about moving on to something else. And I feel like the entire reason she tells him that she's engaged is to get him to admit he loves her and, oh no, I'm so sorry. And but he doesn't, because to him it really is just a fling.
And one little thing is that when we were talking about doing this episode, Renee made the comment where she's not even sure if her engagement is real because of the way she's acting. And I did note when I went to grab screenshots, I paid close attention. The first time we see her, when her introductory scene, and she's acting kind of, clingy, I guess is the word I'm going to use here. She does not appear to be wearing an engagement ring now. However, when we do see her later in the movie, she is wearing a ring. So I'm leaning towards it's a real engagement. She just maybe wasn't feeling like wearing the ring just yet. I don't know.
Well, they talk later about how arranged marriages were a thing in Japan too, which we'll get to that here in a second. So, I mean, it could have been that it was an arranged marriage, that he wasn't coming around. And so, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this now. Then we didn't make the move. She's like, okay, cool, never mind. We're done.
But then we progress. Shigehiko leaves to meet with his friend at the bar. This is his friend Yoshikawa. He's also a producer, but he works with films, like major films, television production, stuff like that. And he's been in the business. He knows everything. But they're meeting to talk about their just general chit chat, talking stuff. And Shigehiko, of course, brings up that his son has mentioned that he should probably start dating again. And Yamazaki, or sorry, not Yamazaki, that's Yoshikawa agrees. I'm messing up names. But the amusing thing here, and I have the shot of the two of them, there's like a girls' party going over on the other side of the bar, and they're kind of loud. And this leads to them commenting about how, women today just aren't the same.
Oh, the nice girl's gone. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Yeah, no, there's a lot of, I won't go into it too deeply because I think we'll do it at the recap at the end, but there's a lot of misogynistic kind of comments made throughout this movie, and a lot of, oh no, you need to find this type of woman and you need to find it. But also, Yoshikawa kind of has an eye for people, but I'll get into that a little bit later too. So I thought about this being such a rude comment about like, oh, there's no nice girls anymore, and but to be honest, he actually might have been picking up on something that we as the audience didn't. But yeah, they're in a completely different room. The women are to them. So again, I think it shows that isolationist, loneliness, separation mentality.
And another thing I think is worth pointing out is that the bartender who is, serving their drinks is a significantly younger gentleman, and he's kind of giving them the side eye when they're making these comments about women. And yeah, so I'm pretty sure there's a generational divide thing here that's in play at the moment as well.
Well, and I think it's interesting because the bartender comes back later, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, they end up having conversation about wanting to get remarried and what would he want in a woman? And Yoshikawa actually says flat out when, Aoyama is saying, well, I want a woman who is educated and who has skills. And Yoshikawa says, okay, so you want your wife back.
Yeah. He rattles off a whole list of attributes, skills he wants her to have, kind of hobbies she should have, like level of education. And Yoshikawa picks up quickly. It's like, yeah, you're describing your wife. And Aoyama, he agrees. It's like, yeah, and it's like, and the thing is that Aoyama is looking at this realistically at first. And he's like, but I'm old and I probably need to like meet thousands of women to ever meet one who would meet my standards. And that is what triggers Yoshikawa to set our plot in motion with a suggestion.
So Yoshikawa's a casting director, and he says, hey, why don't we go ahead and do an audition? Like, I have a legitimate script that we can possibly get done as I think he says a radio broadcast. It was based on a documentary, I guess, that Aoyama was doing, but that's not really super, super important. But they decide that they're going to have all these women audition, and I think it's, again, themes of the movie that keep repeating themselves. There's a comment that Aoyama is like, okay, so wait, I'm going to marry the lead in this? And Yoshikawa is like, absolutely not. Because people who are good actresses are not happy people. Which comes into play, very important, that line is going to come bite them in the butt horribly.
And part of Yoshikawa's explanation for this, and like the mere suggestion of doing this, is kind of raises the question. It's like, so has he like played the field for a date here before? Because he's very no nonsense. Explains to him, here's how it's going to work, and here's like the kind of women you want to look for, and he has this whole thing put together real quick for him, and like he gets. There is a little bit of passage of time because they do put out the casting call, and they do get the the headshots, the resumes, and an essay about why they're interested in the part, and then it's delivered to Aoyama, and he has to go through it. But Yoshikawa's comments on a second viewing of this movie, I'm kind of wondering if his commentary on actresses and happiness and all that is this come from the book this is based on, or did maybe Takashi Miike have a few opinions about actresses?
See, I actually didn't take it as like a dig at actresses either. I think if you had actors, he would have said the same thing. I think the whole point of them talking about being unhappy and that they're the best actors or actresses, and it's all about masking. And I think we hear a lot about masking in regards to like autism spectrum disorder and things like that now, a lot of neurodivergent ways of thinking. But basically all it is, masking is basically hiding who your real self is in order to meet the expectations of the people around you. And so I think that him saying that, oh, the best actresses and actors aren't happy, well, it's because they have to pretend to be happy all the time. So they've become good actors. That's kind of what I took from that line.
But so Yoshikawa proposes this and Aoyama agrees. So I think first we get Aoyama drives home and he hears the radio. Time passes. He hears the radio call for the casting. It's an advertisement for the play, and it's a casting call at the same time. And then the scene switch, still playing the same ad, to this little girl sitting listening to our radio, and definitely an interesting choice.
Well, and again, since this is under the impression that you have seen the movie before, and spoiler notice right next to me here on the screen, I think that a lot of times whenever we see her as a little girl, it's supposed to symbolize hope. And so I think when she's hearing this ad on the radio, I know my media, blah. But she hears the ad on the radio, but I think it's giving her hope, like, oh, wouldn't this be something kind of cool? Wouldn't this get me out a little bit? See if I can meet some nice people. And, I think that's why we see her as a little girl doing this versus seeing Asami the way that she is in the rest of it.
But yeah, other than this brief shot here, the scene does not give us much about her just yet. But time passes, and then Aoyama gets the like 1,000 of the headshots, resumes, and all that. And he's given a weekend to go through them, and the Yoshikawa asks for just pick 30 girls, but don't pick them solely on the headshots. Make sure you read their essays. This is important. And he gets into it. He's going through them, and the interesting thing is well, first off, you have he's essentially shopping for a wife, and then there's this photo of his wife right there, and he looks up and turns it away because he's ashamed.
It's the whole till death do us part thing, right? So I think he feels this guilt, but it's been 7 years. And I really do feel like everybody around him talks about what a good person he is, that they want him to be happy. I think his wife would have too. But yeah, that scene is a little bit comical where he's like, oh no, don't look at me. Don't do it.
Yeah, and this photo is a little important later on too. But he's going through, all the auditions, and he comes across this one. He actually spills some of his drink on it, and that's why he pulls it out. But he pulls out, it's a pretty picture, a young girl. I think she's 23 at the time, and she has her essay written, and it is this tragic story about a girl who, she was raised. She did ballet, and I think she started when she was 12 or something, or real young, but she suffered an injury in her adulthood, which made she could no longer do ballet, and this filled her with sadness. It felt like she lost her life, she lost direction, but then she heard the audition call, and she doesn't think she's going to get the part, but there's no harm in trying.
So I remember vividly that she's actually 24, just because I remember putting it together that since it's been 7 years since his wife died, and now his son is 17, that everything that happened to her at 17 would have been the year his wife died. I don't think it actually has any bearing on the story, just something weird my brain picked up with numbers, and it does that sometimes. But again, the way that she talks about ballet and how it was this escape for her, and it was going to take her to wonderful places, and it was her future, and it was her everything. I think it really strikes a chord with him, because I think that's how he felt about his wife. Like, we're going to be together forever, we're going to do all these things. So her losing ballet to an injury is like him losing his wife. I think that it almost was the shared grief sort of response that they have with each other, and that's what draws him into oh, I'm really interested. Let me know more about her. Trauma bonding a little bit, I think, without him actually knowing the real story.
Yep. And the scene even tries to drive that home, because as he's reading her essay and talking about how much her life has changed and she thinks it's ended, he does get this brief flash of his wife staring at her from her hospital bed. And yeah, that's driving home the connection.
Yeah, I think that it also drives home some other stuff that happens later, but I think a lot of times his wife pops in to be like, hey, red flags, warning, be careful. But I don't think we realize that. We being people who don't know the plot of this movie and don't know that what's going to happen with Asami, but I think she actually pops up, the wife, Ryoko, pops up quite a bit to be almost a harbinger of warning to him. But we see it as grief.
And so, even though the Asami's is the only essay we see him actually read through, he selects. Actually, I don't know if he even actually selects other girls, because then when we see the auditions go, he seems pretty much uninterested in the entire process until he hears Asami's name mentioned, and then there's a break where he actually goes out and sees her sitting all by herself. And then he's waiting for hers to come by. But we do get this kind of comical, kind of creepy audition thing where Yoshikawa is asking all kinds of questions, and some of them are like, yeah, you'd probably ask someone who wants to be in a movie that question, and you're asking the girl hey, would you ever consider working in the sex trade? It's like, and the girl replies, it's like, well, I have a friend who does. It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's one audition that I'm just like, wait a second. They say this is going to be a radio drama. Why is this woman getting naked? Why do they need to see her naked? I don't understand. And I was like, yes, definitely the pervy casting couch vibe coming from them. And I know Aoyama too, right? This is a legitimate casting call. That's what I think is important to note, is they're like, hey, we're going to try to make this movie. If we don't get funders, then it's going to go under. That's fine. But we actually do want to cast this movie. And there's actually a part where Yoshihiko turns to his assistant and he's like, hey, can you save this? Because I want her for a different part. Like, we're casting the lead, but hey, this one I want to save. But I do think it's always interesting when you think about auditions, and headshots, and even when, Aoyama is going through the headshots earlier, there's a whole science behind headshots. And you want to be like, okay, do you want to be the confident femme fatale type? Do you want to be the, like, oh, I'm so sweet, so naive type? Or do you want to be a blank slate? And so I think it's interesting to see, like, which ones are, oh, this is a headshot from an angle, or hey, this is a body shot from far away. And I think, too, seeing some of the women who come in for the audition, it's also sometimes important how you wear things and move, and body language, body language, body language, because you want to go in and you want them to see you in the part, but you also don't want them to pigeonhole you in the part, if that makes sense. Like, kind of like the person who does get, hey, I want her for a different part, so save that. But they do have some really interesting characters. Like, there's a couple of people in there who are just working class people. I think one person says she's a nurse, and she's like, yeah, I'm tired. I love what I do, but I want to try something different. And then we get a person who she starts telling them about her suicide attempts and that she's been hospitalized 3 times. And just, it's an interesting array of characters that come in. But yeah, some of the questions that he asks are very, Yoshikawa asks some stuff that is very intrusive. And I think sometimes people do that authentically in auditions to see if you can actually, like, improv, or how do you deal with something that's thrown at you that's uncomfortable. It's not a common thing. I don't know if that might be something more in line with professional stuff, but I do know thinking on the fly is important too.
But yeah, we get an interesting display because you get the a lot of the girls just sitting there answering questions. Then you get like this kind of like talent thing where like you have a woman in a kimono with a fan and she's doing a dance. Then you have like the cheerleader. You have the woman who strips. And yeah, the woman talking, because she actually like shows her arm where she's cut herself as she's talking about her suicide attempts. It's like, wow, that came from out of left field. But then we get to Asami, and she comes in, and she is rigid. She's very soft-spoken. She's very doughy. She's acting like she has very little confidence. But Aoyama, lights up, and he praises her for her essay, and he's talking about how it shows strength of character and all that. And the thing I love about it is you have Yoshikawa sitting next to him, and he gives him this look a few times. It's like, you're laying it on thick there, buddy.
And like you said, and like I was talking about with audition stuff, and you have to go in with a certain look. Asami comes in wearing white. White is a symbol of innocence and purity. She, like you said, very, very rigid, but she keeps her eyes down. So very like, oh, demure and soft spoken and those sorts of things. But I always feel like she, I know, is playing it up to look like this victim that he has to step in and rescue. And again, I think that was the, oh, we've both lost this and we can heal together and I'm going to save you sort of thing. Yeah.
But so Aoyama finishes praising Asami, and Yoshikawa really has no questions for her because, like, yeah, Aoyama covered it. We'll let you know. And so Asami leaves. She bows and thanks them for their time. And Aoyama asks Yoshikawa what he thinks about her. And Yoshikawa has a rather interesting comment that she makes him nervous.
And again, I think that it's really interesting with casting directors and how some of this stuff goes, that you kind of learn to read people and get a sixth sense about people. So when he's like, oh, she makes me nervous and I don't know why, little side tangent, but the first thing that went to my brain is the dating game killer. So Rodney Alcala ended up he was a serial killer. I can't remember how many people he killed. I want to say it was like at least maybe 8 women, might have been more than that. So I'm kind of doing this off my memory. I probably should have done a little bit more research before this. But he went on the dating game and actually won the episode that he was on. But it's really interesting when you hear people talk about it who were on the dating game. Like, he's a really good looking guy. Oh, he's so handsome. Oh, he's this. But a lot of the women casting directors were like, yeah, he's charismatic. Yeah, he's good looking. But he has given us a creepy vibe. We don't like this. And they were overruled. But the woman who ended up winning the episode and was supposed to go on the date with him actually begged the producers after the show, like, do not make me go out with this man. Something is wrong. Something is off. Something is weird. And so they told her, no, you still have to go on the date with him. But then the female casting directors were like, nope, we agree with her. There is something wrong. And we should not make this woman go out and do it. So I just thought it was interesting to hear Yoshikawa say, yeah, nope. I'm kind of seeing through this, there is something seriously amiss here, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm telling you, it is bad.
And we are not shown the rest of the auditions because, that was it. That was the one that Aoyama was waiting for. So we go ahead and we get to the date. He calls her up, and she thinks it's kind of further casting questions, but he assures her, no, this is a casual thing. I'm not judging you from a casting thing. And she makes the comments like, oh, all I have to do is just talk with you and eat fancy food. This is great. I don't get to do this because I'm like living. She goes into detail about her work. And there was a whole thing where during the audition, she gave a list of contacts. Here's her experience, here's her training. And, she had a voice coach and all that. And Yoshikawa starts looking into her, and at this point, he's only checked a few things. And Aoyama brings it up during this. Is like, hey, so we couldn't contact the people you mentioned. It's like, we couldn't find them. They didn't work there anymore, or they're some. And she's like, oh yeah, they're not a real contact. I lied. I'm sorry. I was given the advice that it's good to pretend you have connections. And she gets extremely apologetic, and he assures her, no, it's fine. That makes sense. I don't blame you. And yeah, it's a very awkward first date, but you're definitely getting the whole she is the wounded bird and he needs to nurse her back to health and all that.
So, in looking at this picture too, like, body language is one of the most important things that we look at in psychotherapy, because you'd have people who are like, I'm so sad. This is so hard for me. And they're smiling, which, I mean, that's the obvious different, their affect doesn't meet what their stated mood is. But you'll see like fidgeting, or people will be like arms crossed or defensive, and I think like in this scene, you can see just how, I don't know, on edge might be the word that I use. Like, she is tense. Like, looks like a board sort of a thing. And I think that is done twofold. One, I do think that she's trying to keep her guard up because she's not quite sure what Aoyama wanted from her on this dinner. But I think it also brings home that I'm a wounded bird. I have been through trauma. See, look at how tense I am. You should reassure me and just be nice to me and let me do the things that I want to do. So again, I think body language with her is very interesting throughout the film.
And another thing you need to keep in mind is that this was not Aoyama's idea, and he's trying to, I guess, put in the work. He doesn't want to seem like a creepy producer who's preying on the talent, and he wants to, he wants to be nice. He wants to woo her. He doesn't want to seem like a creep because he is like almost twice her age, and so at this point, he's being assuring. He's trying not to be forceful, and but this is our first date, and it goes well. He tells her Is this isn't the one where he drives her home. He drives her home on the second date.
Yeah.
Home, heavy air quotes. But so they part, and he tells her he'll call her again about the movie. And the interesting thing is that 4 days pass, and he's actually kind of again, this is him trying to not seem like a creep. He's not going to pounce on her right away, but we get the interesting shot of her waiting, and this is where the movie is starting to turn and get just a little creepy, because this is her waiting. There's this bag sitting there, very big bag. We don't know its purpose just yet, but we have her. She is sitting there, and she's actually slumped over while she's waiting. And then when the phone rings, she raises her head and gets that creepy smile on her face.
Yeah, I don't know. It almost makes me think of like venomous plants, like the Venus flytraps and things like that. It's like just I sit very still, I sit waiting, and now I have you. And like she knows that's him calling, probably because he's the only person who has her number. She knows that's who this is, so that she gets the creepy smile of aha, you have fallen into my trap. My web. Let's talk about a spider, right? But no, her look is very predatory, which is I think what gives that air of uneasiness. And then the bag starts, I think moving is an understatement. Like it launches itself across the room. Like there is obviously something in that bag.
Yeah, and the way it plays out, it's weird because it's like the bag is reacting to her, because the phone rings for a little while, and then she, raises her head and smiles, and then the bag moves. And it felt like the bag was reacting to her, like her aura changed.
Like, oh my gosh, she wants to hurt me. I can feel the malice. This is not okay. This is not okay. Kind of a response.
So he calls her and he sets up the second date. And this is her on her way to meet him. And she's changed her wardrobe a little.
And we forgot to mention it on that first date. She talks about, and she's like, I don't have a lot of connections and I don't have a big network. She's like, I'm just a very simple person. I'm very, what is it that she says? Something like, I'm very plain. I'm very basic, like no frills sort of thing. And then she shows up in that thing. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're not matching what we were saying. Like, definite disconnect, because that is one red gonna stick out in a crowd ostentatious coat. Almost get like a victory, like, yeah, I won, ha 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 ha, sort of a thing.
All right, and we get the second date, and it's actually kind of filmed in such a way to where I think we actually get 3 dates in quick succession. And like he's asking her about her family, and she says, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I mean, we're not close, but we don't hate each other. We're fairly normal." He asks her about how she pays her bills, and she talks about working at a bar with a friend she met in one of her classes. These kind of just connecting all the dots, giving herself, he's trying to get to know her. This is one of the things he stressed back when he was talking to Yoshikawa, sorry, back at the bar, and he's getting to know her, and we get like these 3 different dates, and of course he keeps like I think at all 3 of the dates, there's a point where he's like praising her and talking about her strength of character and how it's amazing, the strength to move on after what they've been through. He's connecting with her, and they seem to be going well. And before we talk about the end of the dates, you want to add anything to that?
Also really interesting because like when she's like, hey, I work at this bar with a friend. Oh, I'd love to come see you there. Oh no, please don't come see me there. She tries to control my life. And then I do this thing. Oh, I'd love to. No. Please don't, because they don't want me to be with people. Like she does all of these excuses that would make it seem like if he surprised her or came to see her or did some loving act like that, it would be bad for her. And I think it continues that victim mentality that she's trying to put here so that he can fill that rescue role. But I think she does it 2 or 3 times. Where he's like, oh, maybe I should check this out. She's like, no, no, they like to, what's the word, interfere with my life and da 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 da. But we know that's a lie later.
Oh, and also, my fault here. We kind of skipped over some of the more scenes between Aoyama and his son, because his son is, he brings a girl home and they have dinner, and his son is super into dinosaurs. He wants to be a paleontologist of some kind, and the girl, he just passes her on the way to school. I don't think they share any classes or anything. He's like, "Hey, you're cute. I want to hang out," and she agrees, and she comes home, and she's very respectful for Aoyama Senior. It's like because I think it was reading when he was reading the auditions that he brings her home, and he's like, "Yeah, so it's dinner time," and Aoyama Senior's like, "Oh yeah, you can give her my dinner. I'll find something else." And then as he goes out to walk the dog, which we also failed to mention earlier, yeah, they have this cute little beagle dog. It's adorable. He goes out to walk it and says hi to the girl. Her name's Rie.
No, Ray is the housekeeper.
My bad. Oh crap. What's the girl's name?
I cannot remember because we see her twice, and the conversations are not very deep.
Yeah, it's like just kind of starts of a romance essentially between the two, the son and this girl. But after his dates, Aoyama is getting serious with Asami, and he goes to tell his son he's actually thinking about taking Asami on a very important trip, and he intends to ask her to marry him. And the son congratulates him because he says, he's been seeming happier recently, and he's like, "Oh, you've been seeing a girl. Okay, good. That is good. I love you, Dad."
So it's just so sad how good of a relationship they have, and then just all this stuff that's going to end up happening to them. But I do think Aoyama is so, prepping to be alone that he's just overlooking everything and just, no, yes, I see that red flag that you lied about having all these contacts, and yes, I see that red flag that I can never come visit you wherever you're at, but I don't care. I'm going to keep doing this. I also kind of had some interesting, just me as a therapist, like the obsessive focus that Shigehiko has on all of the dinosaurs and stuff. I'm like, okay, is this possible spectrum stuff? Is this just hyperfixation with maybe something with ADHD, which is a thing? ADHD is not always just being all over the place. Or is it a trauma response? Like I said in the beginning, with, we were doing dinosaurs when my mother was dying, so maybe that became an interest for him.
But yeah, the son gives his approval. And so Aoyama takes Asami on this weekend getaway, seaside resort. It's a place he's been to before. He knows the place well, and as they're sitting in the hotel, and he's got this whole thing planned. He knows it's places he could take her, things she could see. There's food they could eat, but on a second viewing, I think she's doing this specifically to throw him off his game and take control. So she, as he's announcing all the things they could do, she is slowly disrobing. And then she turns out the lights and climbs into bed and tells him to come over and look at her. And this is when she reveals that she has these 2 burn scars on her right inner thigh. And her excuse is that it was an accident. She accidentally burned herself. But she thinks it makes her, hideous. She feels filthy, and this is to, kind of coax him into talking about how beautiful she is. And I'm going to let you take this away because I feel you have much better commentary to insert in here.
It's one of those things. I think exactly what you said. It's about changing the power dynamic. Is, he's been the rescuer this whole time and she's been the victim. And so her being like, okay, you want to do this? Because I think he even says, like, when she gets naked, like, we don't have to do this. Like, if you're not ready, that's okay. But she pushes the issue. And I thought that was kind of an interesting, her changing the power dynamic, right? Like, I have this thing you want, and so I'm offering it to you before you can take it away from me, or I'm offering it to you so that you have to beg me for these things. But again, I do think it's interesting, and I know you're saying it's, oh, she's saying all that to coax him into saying how beautiful she is and how I think she actually shows it and legitimately does have shame might not be the right word, but like it is a scarring part of her past. And I think it's her showing, like, I'm not perfect, there's flaws in my past, this sort of thing. But again, I think that she does that in order to lower his guard. Like, look at this, like, I was injured and it's horrible and da 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 da. It's not that she wants him to constantly praise her. I think that she kind of did that too in the, okay, is this going to be something that turns him off from the relationship? Is he going to do something after this? Is he going to, question more about me? But again, I think it turns to this whole thing of, I'm switching the power dynamic. I have the control now because I have control of the sex. And of course, he gives into it. I also think this is a little bit of a trap for him.
Well, an important thing we need to bring up here is that, and because these lines come back, is that she insists that he swear he will only love her. And he says he will. And her response is, they always say that. You have to only love me, no one else. And that's when he climbs on top of her. And, they initiate the sex.
I think it's funny when we talk about the sex, but yeah, no. Which I think it was actually the rewatch that I did yesterday. Because like I said, this was a new watch for us, so we were trying to make sure that we remember as much as humanly possible. When they start having sex and they roll over with the sheet, it makes the exact same sound effect. Like, they reuse the sound effect of that bag in her apartment throwing itself against the wall. And I think that is kind of like the metaphorical nail in the coffin for him. Like, okay, you are now ensnared. I now have possession of you. You are now mine.
Yeah, can confirm. I did not notice that on either of my viewings until you pointed it out to me, and then I had to compare. I had Amazon up on one screen, I had VLC up on the other, and it's like, yep, that is the same sound.
And the same movement, and the same everything. Like, it definitely had that, oh, hey, look, let's look at the association here. And that's also, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it next, so I won't go into too much detail. But I think this is when she's decided, like, no, this is not going to go well for Iowa.
And it is a point that he wakes up and he doesn't seem to feel well. He's like in pain, but he notices that she's gone. And then he actually gets up and calls like the front desk. It's like, oh yeah, she left.
Like you said, he's in pain, but when we talk about pain, like, it's almost like he's hung over. Like, he's got a bit of a headache. He's just like, oh, what? We both think that she drugged him in some way. So I'm almost a little bit curious if they ever actually got to have sex. But I think that he's definitely been drugged, and that's how she was able to sneak out and get away from him and see what ends up happening next.
And yeah, so he goes home, and he can't contact her. And so he goes looking for her in all the places that she's mentioned. And he's getting warnings from Yoshikawa. It's like, yeah, you should just let her go. She's cut you off. You should let her cut you off, and you just move on with your life. But Aoyama's obsessed, so he goes looking for her. And he goes looking for the dance studio, where she did ballet. And the movie is now getting much darker because we have this gentleman. First the place is kind of like a not in the best of shape. Like there's like boards up all over the outside, the front side of this building. Aoyama has to push a few out of the way to get in the front door. The place is dark; it's not lit, and he enters, the dance studio, and for a place that's abandoned, that this floor is well kept. But then you see at a piano across the room, there's this gentleman playing a song, and Aoyama is like, hey, I'm looking for Asami, and this gentleman has a story to tell. And do you want to go into this? Because holy crap!
Yeah, but I was gonna say, just because I wasn't sure what the next slide was, like I really do think that she drugged him because she wanted him to chase her. Like, I will love only you. Well, if you love me, come get me, sort of a thing, and just kind of disappears. But yeah, this guy, creepy. Like the way he talks about Asami is definitely she is a possession. He's like, well, have you smelled her? Have you had sex with her? And it's like, ugh, ugh, ugh. But he talks a lot about training her in ballet and her dancing for him. And we get images, which is what we're seeing here. She's probably, I want to say, about 11, 12 in this flashback, but he's the one who's been burning her. And we find out later that it's not even just a single burn. Like he has been burning her in the same spot repeatedly with this incense, almost like a brand. You are mine. You are my possession. I own you. What I think is interesting, and I'll go into detail later when we get to that scene, the one that put this movie on my list, but made me delay it repeatedly over and over and over and over and over, is he goes to brand her, stops, looks at her, and smiles, just the happiness that he has before he then takes the incense to her skin. And it's definitely that part of, I enjoy inflicting pain, I enjoy having this power over you, and now you are branded and you are, and it is just,
Yeah. So, a little disclaimer for those of you watching. If you're not familiar with the movie, I had to be very selective on what I use as screenshots here, because the movie does get very graphic from this point on. Like for our next slide, it's like, I don't think I could have shown the close-up, but we see this gentleman in the wheelchair. He sort of has feet, except for they're not his feet, and they're not connected in a healthy way. Because he apparently has someone else's severed feet sewn onto him, and it is hideous, and it is a sight to behold. It sickens Aoyama, and we'll come back to that because we get more detail on this guy.
Well, Aoyama doesn't actually see it here, right? Like there's a scene later on where we get close-ups, and I think that's when we discover that it's because when I watched this, I saw his feet. Again, I've done, a lot of health and hospital work in the past. But the first thing I thought is like, does he have some sort of like diabetic necrosis going on in his feet? Is that what's happening? What is that? Are those prosthetics? Are those? But no, we definitely get an up close and very graphic shot. It's not like disgusting graphic, but it's like you can see the detail where like those are someone else's feet that have been sewn on top of his feet.
So, meeting this gentleman, Aoyama is kind of he's kind of doubting whether he should continue, but after washing up and assuring himself, he continues on and goes on to the next location he recalls Asami mentioning, and this is the bar that she worked at. And this is the way this scene is shot is very interesting, even though I think this particular scene is home to the one little shot that we think is kind of like the worst thing in this movie, just because it's so wildly out of place. It's goofy, and it's like, why are we even seeing this? But so Aoyama finds the bar. It's called the Stonefish, and this is where Asami claimed to work with a friend from a class. And he arrives there, and it's locked. And this gentleman walks by, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the place is closed. You can't go in." And so Aoyama turns to him and is like, "Oh, how long's it been closed?" He's like, "Oh, it's been closed like a year." He's like, "Oh, do you know Asami? She said she worked here." Gentleman's like, "I have no idea who that is." And Aoyama's like, "Okay, so why is it closed?" And the gentleman's like, "Oh yeah, the owner got murdered." And it's like, this is a bit of a shock to Aoyama. It's like, "Oh, um, who?" Essentially, the other gentleman winds up explaining that the woman who owned it, how does he go? It's like her boyfriend's lover caught them or jealous and cut them up, and there was so much blood. And the reason that this scene is shown slanted is because apparently the building is old and slightly slanted, so when the corpses were inside, the blood pooled outside the door at the bottom of the landing and people would see it. And when the police went in to investigate, it's like, yeah, they were all cut up, they had limbs severed. But when the police collected all the parts, there were more parts than there should be, considering the two victims. And it was in this scene, because he mentions that there is an extra ear, an extra tongue, and 3 extra fingers. And then we get this bizarre shot of Aoyama seeing like the severed tongue, the severed ear, and the severed fingers on the floor in blood, and the tongue is wiggling, and Aoyama like falls back like, "Oh my god!" And it's so strange because, like, well, this was a year ago. You wouldn't. Why are we seeing this? It's weird.
I think the point behind it was that they want you to have like that horrified feeling of what that would be like. But to be honest, the vibe I got from it is those old cartoons where like Tom and Jerry, like Tom's teeth get ripped out and they chatter on the ground like the wind up teeth. Like that is the vibe I got from this. And like it is goofy and weird. But yeah, we made comments that this entire scene is shot slanted, and they make the comment that the building is slanted. But I think it's definitely something where they're talking, because when Aoyama went to go talk to the old man, like definitely you can get the feeling what this old man probably has abused her and done horrible things. But I feel like this is the part where he starts to really feel like something is wrong. And so I think having the building slanted and talking about it being slanted, like this is when his worldview shifts on what Asami is like. And again, I think that's why they show this. I want to say hallucination. Like it's not a hallucination. It's just he sees what something in his mind's eye, but then we get to see it as an audience member. But yeah, it is pretty darn bizarre.
So Aoyama leaves, and we get this interesting shot of the exterior of Aoyama's home, coupled with a phone message from his son saying, "It's like, oh, he's going to be out. He's not going to be home for a while." And this shot is apparently the point of view of Asami as she breaks into his home. And the first thing she does is goes upstairs to his office, and she sees the picture of his wife. And the next few shots is her, quickly going around the house. I think she grabs the decanter that he has his alcohol of choice in, and it's implied that she drugs it, and then she hides somewhere to wait for him to come home.
Which again, that scene is also very interesting because the style of the shots is very different than anything that we've ever seen in the movie. And again, I don't know if this is just me being observant on it, but the entire mood or the emotion that I give to this is like rage. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like the way that she moves is what we would call psychomotor agitation, which means you're moving faster or in ways that really aren't natural. Like how she's moving quickly through there, like the way that the camera pans left and right, it's almost like she's darting. her head around to look at things. So I don't know. It's almost like it's like you're watching it from an animal's point of view, like a caged animal that's about to be released, like release the hounds and go for the hunt sort of a thing. But yeah, she starts going around the house. She gets mad about the picture that is on the desk. But yeah, the entire scene, like I said, the emotion I got from it was rage. And that is the best word that I could use to describe it.
So Aoyama returns home, and we've kind of made it this far without mentioning his housekeeper, because I think it's awkward that he gets home. The housekeeper is not there this time. She'd mentioned in a previous scene that I don't think she'd be here, but then he gets a message from his son, and feed the dog, and he kind of looking around is, where's the dog?
Oh, there's no love in my heart for people who hurt animals. Which, do we see the dog at this point?
In this scene, no, we do not see the dog when he arrives home.
Okay, then I will wait to talk about that in a second. But yeah, when he gets home, I think it's so interesting. And again, Ray is the housekeeper, and like you said, we haven't really talked about her too much because I feel like her only role in the entire movie is to say, "Hey, you need to get married. Why aren't you married? Get married. You need to get married." But I think it's so interesting, like when he comes home and nobody's home and he doesn't know where the dog is, just how, I guess, comfortable he is. We have dogs, and I can tell you, if I came home and my dogs were not harassing us at the front door, I'd be like, "What happened? Where are they? Oh my gosh, something's wrong. We need to find them." But he just does everything like la la la, and I think it's because he's been in a house where he's had a woman who's taking care of him, and he doesn't feel like he really needs to worry about things, which is bad for him because he's about to have a really bad time. And I was kind of curious, and this comes up a little bit with how the movie ends. Like, she put whatever paralytic she ends up giving him. I think it's an initial paralytic. I think she injects him with some other paralytics once he's down. But I'm sure people have seen, like, on drug bottles and stuff like that, it's like, do not take this with alcohol. And you'll see it on, like, Tylenol and Advil. And I've had a lot of people go like, well, that's stupid. Like, it's Tylenol. The whole thing with having alcohol with medications is alcohol will thin your blood. And so your medications are sometimes not absorbed in the way that they should be. Sometimes they're almost absorbed too fast. Because of the alcohol, and so it can actually cause a lot more issues. So I wondered a little bit with how he reacts to the drug that she gives him, if it had to do with the fact that he was mixing it with alcohol. But for all I know, that's what she always does. So
But yeah, he's contemplating what he's learned and drinking from his alcohol of choice. I really can't remember if he said what it was or not. But he starts to feel woozy, he gets up, takes a few steps, and collapses into a strange series of visions where he kind of sort of reviews dates he's had with Asami. And we kind of get revised versions of her backstory. It's a weird mismatch of scenes, and it's I think it's meant to reflect Aoyama's confusion about what's going on, and he's trying to understand, come to terms, wrestle with the decisions, like, is he still going to pursue Asami or not? And the real interesting thing is that when we get this shot where, this is one of the dates he had with Asami before, and while he's talking to Asami, he hears the voice of his wife, and he stands up and he sees her at a table with, the child version, the 10-year-old version of his son. And yeah,
son's girlfriend is there too, which I thought was kind of weird. It's like, oh, she's part of the family now? We met her once. Okay, cool.
I mean, I think it makes sense because he was happy for his son to have a girlfriend, because it's kind of implied that he didn't really have friends, much less a girlfriend. So I assume him attaching her to the family unit is not a huge leap.
which I kind of wanted to go back to that previous scene where they're in the diner looking place. Um, so this is where I'm like, okay, movie, are we just doing expository dialogue? Is there something more going on here, or what's happening? But I think that we talk a lot about REM sleep, right? And I'm sure people are familiar with it. Like when we dream, we have rapid eye movement, and there's a theory, and I'm a trained EMDR therapist, which is what utilizes this. There's a theory that when we have bilateral eye movement, and then later on we just do bilateral stimulation, that our brain is trying to heal itself. And the way that it does that is we do the side to side stuff, but then our brain will like dig deep into our subconscious and pull things out. And that's where we get things like dream interpretation and, oh, you're having a fear of losing control. So you're going to dream about a car accident. So kind of like what you said, it's like, was he having kind of these dreams that were trying to sort through all of the information he's had so far? Except some of these things are almost, is prophetic the right word? It's like things omnipotent looking. Like it's things that he should not know that we know as an audience, which gets interesting. But anyway, that was my long story to set up a lot of the different things that are going to come up. But this scene in particular, she talks about her childhood. And I think that this goes into that feeling of love me, always love me. Because she says, my parents got divorced when I was really young and I went to live with my aunt, but my aunt would beat me. She made me lay in a ice cold bath and I got pneumonia. I would show up to school with bruises until finally somebody said something, which I think is when she catches the pneumonia. So then she was sent to go, oh, and yeah, her aunt was a bad person, I think is what she says. And then she goes back to live with her mom and says that the man that her mom lived with was a very mean, cruel person. And I think she said he was disabled. So I almost wondered if they were talking about the old man, but we know the old man's not anyway. But when she talks about all this, Aoyama asks her, well, how old were you when you were sent back to your mom? And she was 7, which means that the beatings and her catching pneumonia and all that stuff from her aunt, if it's a true story, happened when she was maybe 4 or 5, which I just think is horrific. But it goes through this whole sequence of how she is lonely. People don't seem to care about her. She has spent her entire life wanting to be loved, and nobody loves her. And again, setting up the story of abuse and trauma that has caused some of these issues. And then at the next scene, which again is where I thought maybe, yeah, this one, where I'm like, this is definitely, I think, his subconscious talking to him, is, he tells Ryoko, like, look, I've met somebody. I'm so happy. I'm going to marry her. And she just has like this look of horror. And she's like, don't do it. Do not marry her. Do not marry her. She is troubled. Do not do this. And this is the scene where I kind of go back when, Nox was saying, hey, yeah, no, we have this scene of her in the bed and then to drive home that he's connecting the grief together. I saw that almost as Ryoko saying, hey, don't do this. This is bad. Almost like a little bit of a supernatural element, but there's nothing that show that it's supernatural. It's just an interesting thing that happens.
Well, I think it could be a supernatural thing, just because after this one, we then get Aoyama. He's still passed out from being drugged, and he has a vision of Asami's apartment, which he has never been to. He should not know anything about. And especially the man in the bag. And this is the only scene I will be showing of the apartment because this gets a little graphic, a little disgusting at one point. And but we also get sort of a revised version of the things that the gentleman in the dance, the dance school in the wheelchair, the things that he told Aoyama, we get sort of a revised version from Asami. And it's kind of hard to follow, but we get like this weird symbolism because there's points where Aoyama sees Asami as she is now, and she comes in and she feeds the man in the bag with her own vomit. And then as this is the man in the bag is eating and crying, then we see child version of Asami soothing the man in the bag. And it's confusing, but I'm sure our professional here has interpretations.
Professional. Okay, cool. I need a pay raise. Thank you. But yeah, this is scene one of two scenes that I knew were in this movie that made me not want to see this movie because I was terrified. Which is, I can handle blood, I can handle poo, I cannot handle spit and vomit. It is gross. That is why I did not go into the medical field fully. So knowing that she basically throws up in this dog bowl and feeds it to him, ugh, utterly disgusting. I will say, though, the scene is actually not as graphic as you would think. Like, it literally looks like she puts, like, chicken noodle soup in front of him without the noodles. But you definitely hear her throwing up, and I think that actually unnerved me more than anything. It's important to note, though, that the scene that we talked about way earlier, where, like, oh, yeah, this guy was my voice coach, but we can't get a hold of him. Oh, yeah, no, he's not real. Well, no, that's the guy who's in the back. Like, he's a music producer, and I think somewhere along the line they talk about how he had gone missing like 6 months earlier. No, it had to be a year earlier because, or 18 months. I can't remember. It's
18.
18. Okay, so 6 months before the murder. But when he comes out of the bag, he's missing his tongue. He is missing 3 fingers, and we assume he's missing an ear, but he's got super long hair. Obviously, he has been here for a very long time. But a lot of his movements and stuff to Asami are very subservient. Like, he stays in a bowed position. He lifts his hands up toward her in like a submissive, please sir, may I have some more type of gesture, which is when she gives him the vomit and he gladly eats it. And just, well, I say gladly, he quickly eats it because he's probably starving. I don't think anybody would gladly do that. But then, like Nox said, we see her patting him as the little girl. And like I said before, I think every time we see her as a little girl, it's symbolizing hope. And yeah, I guess I'll kind of go into it here. Right? I'll go into it in, again, the scene that everybody knows this movie for. But I think legitimately a lot of the things that Asami does, she sees as love. Like, when we hear the story about how people have treated her whole life and just the horrific things that she's been through, and I think about the old man, which is, I think, the scene that you're going to go to next. But you don't need to just yet. But with the old man and everything, like, when he goes to brand her and then looks up and gives her that smile and then brands her, it's like she's associated pain and love together. And so I think that her patting this guy on the head is like, see, I fed him. See, look how much he cares for me and look how much he depends on me. And so we're good. Like, I'm a good person for him. Like, I think she has some of those delusions. But this is also the scene where then we see the man in the wheelchair shows up, and that's when we see, like, oh, this is the guy's feet on this guy's feet, because this man's feet have also been cut off. And yeah, it's pretty grotesque. But we also, which is, again, we started to have this discussion on how does this look, where a lot of the women in Aoyama's life start popping up. And they start popping up in very sexually compromising positions, which one is the woman who gets engaged to him and insinuates that they have done things together. I will not be
She announces her engagement. Sorry, the way you worded that made it sound like she was engaged to Aoyama.
Oh, no. When she announces her engagement to somebody else, sorry. But definitely insinuate that I think they have had trysts. I don't know. There's something about it that makes me think that they, at the office, would have sex occasionally. But, you know, talking to him about, like, why don't you love me? Why don't you care for me? I know Nox thought it was really interesting because then the son's girlfriend shows up and starts talking about sexual encounters, and Nox is like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, yeah, no, I think this entire thing is about the sexuality, the sexual power of women, sort of a thing. And so they're all putting him in positions where he feels uncomfortable. But I don't think he did anything with the girlfriend. We also see the housekeeper. I think she's like having sex on the stairway. But what I thought was interesting with it is she's having sex with the guy in the bag. It's not that explicit. It's more like she's just holding him, sort of a thing. But he just starts seeing all of these women in his life. And I think that it's trying to show, like I said, the power dynamic in society with men and women. So there is a feminist quality to this movie. But I'll talk about that more at the very, very end. Yeah. And then going to what Nox was saying, when we get a different set of events from the point of view of Asami with the man in the wheelchair, like we see her go back to the ballet studio, and like as an adult she does that same pose where she has her legs spread and allows him to brand her. We also see her decapitate him with piano wire, which is interesting. Nox and I were having a conversation though on whether, did she actually kill him? Was he a ghost when Aoyama came? I was under the theory that Asami was following Aoyama this entire time since she left him at the beach house. And after he had talked with the man in the wheelchair, had killed him. But also this movie gets really trippy at the end where we don't know what's real and what isn't.
And then we do have to keep in mind that this is all in Aoyama's head, and if it's true information he is getting, I don't know really how to take that, because he's getting information he shouldn't have. So there's kind of like, is this information he's getting that he should not have true? Is this something he came up with himself? But there's nothing to contradict it, so I'm led to believe it's true.
But also it's a symbolic gesture of he took her power back from her abuser. I took the head off the snake. I am now the one in charge. Like, you thought that you owned me? No, sir, I own you now. So, I mean, regardless of whether it's real or not, I think that's the real statement that they're trying to make there is Asami has not been the victim for a long time. Yes, she was a victim. Yes, the things that happened to her were horrific. But there's a point where, like, the tables turned and the power dynamic turned.
But yeah, so capstone is, we get the vision of Asami killing the man in the wheelchair. We get the weird sexual images of some of the other women. And yeah, Aoyama then he comes to. He wakes up, and there's Asami. I'm not going to show it, but we see her preparing through a crack in a door, and she's putting on this big leather apron, and we hear the clanking of metal because it sounds like she has knives and stuff. And then as she opens the door to step into the room, Aoyama catches sight of his dog dead on the floor where she was preparing. And of note is that sorry, this might be graphic for some people, but a little warning. It looks fake, but she has like completely reversed this dog's head. Like, it is, probably requires a feat of strength you would not expect from this tiny little woman.
Which again, I think is where it goes into that when she's going around the house and just that caged animal rage aspect. It's like, yeah, no, you can't do that easily to really any living thing. Especially, I would think a dog would, if you're trying to hurt them like that, would be biting you or doing those sorts of things. So I think it's supposed to show that she is not this weak little person that we've been led to believe. Because even the fact that she, poisons Aoyama with the paralytic kind of shows like, oh yes, no, I don't have the power to overpower you with this. And so, but it's like, yeah, she probably doesn't in all reality, but she's a lot stronger than she looks.
And then as she's gets out her bag, talking about what she's going to do, and we get the money shot. If you know anything about this movie, you have probably seen this image of Asami in her apron with her gloves and that little needle. She's about to inject more paralytic into him. But she does stress that he'll be able to feel everything. And that is the point.
Yeah, because there's a couple of scenes when she does some of the torture stuff to him that she does, where you can see his hand shaking and it's banging against the floor. And again, I am not a medical expert. I have a lot of medical experience just because of the fields that I've worked in. That's not him being able to move. That is the nerves in his body having a fit. Like, that is his body in so much pain that his muscles are spasming. So I think that's important to know, because I think when you watch the movie, it looks like he's just kind of trying to fight the paralytic, but really he is just in so much pain that his paralyzed body is not staying paralyzed, which is awful. But there are a lot of, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, Nox, I try to let you take the lead on these things, but this is where she talks a lot about the, oh, all men are the same. Like, I thought you were going to love only me, but you were lying. Because she makes a comment that when his son comes home, she's going to kill his son. And he says, you leave him alone. And she's like, see, you don't love just me. You were lying to me. And again, it's really hard with this movie to be able to tell. Excuse me, but there's a condition called borderline personality disorder, which it gets so confusing because you'll hear people talk about BPD, which is borderline, but then people will also try to use it for bipolar disorder, and it's like, no, that's a different acronym. So I'm just letting people out there know. But borderline personality disorder, I won't say she exhibits all of the traits, but the one thing that happens a lot is how does the DSM put it? Prevention of real or imaginary abandonment. And kind of what it means by that is, like, if somebody is like, hey, you want to go out to eat tonight? No, I can't. I have work to do. You don't love me. You're going to leave me. You hate me. That's why you're not going. And it's like, no, I literally have work to do. Like, what are we doing? Where did this all end? That's one of the tenets of borderline. So I just think it's interesting, this entire scene. She's talking about, oh, see, you're a liar and you take advantage of girls. And of course, we know Aoyama doesn't. Like, he legitimately actually, I say, cared about Asami. Again, I think he was trying to replace his wife versus actually find a real, like, new person to be with. But that's a whole different thing. But again, this whole scene is just skin crawling. And it was actually, and I hate to say this, Nox, it was really kind of funny to watch your reactions to this.
In my defense, the suspense for this scene had been built up for me pretty much since, I want to say, what was it, 2005, I think it was, when I saw the Bravo special. And yeah, kind of like, hey, that movie sounds interesting, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch it. And there were a few times it was like, oh, hey, it was on, Prime or Netflix, I don't know, something. And I thought about it, but then went and found something else. So, and plus, I don't do needles well. And so, for those who don't know, in this scene, after she's injected the paralytic into him, she gets out these tiny little pins, and she puts some in his belly, some in his chest, and then she makes her way up to his face. And she's putting them in his cheek, his lips, his eyelids, and then she caps it off. And I'm pretty sure YouTube would freak out if I showed any of that stuff, but we get this shot where she's putting one into his eye, and she's enjoying herself. She's making, as she's inserting these needles, she's making this little noise, which she gets known for in movie circles, is like kitty, 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 kitty. And it's it's like a cute little thing she's saying, and she's doing this terrible thing. It is awful.
I want to note, I know you said she gets out these tiny needles. Like, they're tiny in that the gauge is tiny on it, but they're like 6 inches long. Like I'm like think acupuncture needles. Because when she starts all of this, she actually starts everything in the belly, and she's like, "Oh, and this is super sensitive, and this is super painful, and this." And then once she gets done with the belly, she actually like she's straddling him this entire time, but she grabs like his shoulders and pulls herself up. So basically, she scrapes herself, and I think more of a going from one side. So I don't think she's stabbing herself with the needles at all, but she literally drags her body across those needles, which I can just imagine how excruciating that must have been for him. And then she does his face. Now, this is what I think is actually so well done with the movie. And like Nox said, I knew about the vomit scene and I knew about this scene. There's a lot of stuff in this scene that is just, ugh. And I didn't
Oh,
want to
we're not
see it.
done.
Well, no, we're not done. Like, I feel like the part that is most famous about the scene still has to happen. Um, but that, hey, I'm not really into right what's been classified as torture porn. Like I've never seen Hostel. I have seen the Saw movies, but after the first two, the third one was okay to finish out the story. It was more about the mystery for me on those things. But I just don't like seeing people hurt. Like I feel like at least in a lot of horror movies, when the deaths happen, they're super quick and yeah, sometimes if they're slow, it's usually not that the killer is taking delight in it. So it just it just, I guess, goes against just every social construct in my brain to take a lot of pleasure in hurting others. But again, I think for her, she legitimately has this idea that this is how you show love. But I also think that it's the power dynamic of I'm going to cause you so much pain. But then she says the line, which leads into the next part of, hey, I'm going to make sure you never leave me. I'll let you explain that, Nox.
And I'm not going to show any of this, but once she's got pins in both of his eyes, and he's yeah, he's having a bad day. She pulls out these metal clamps and puts them on his feet, and we get the line of "I'm going to make sure you can never leave me." And she pulls out the piano wire, and she's so giddy as she does it because she's like, doing kind of like little dance with her hands as she's getting her legs in position to where she can be around, and she's wrapping the piano wire around his ankle, and they show it, and it is, I mean, it's not real, and it has a little bit of fakeness to it, but it's just graphic enough to where I'm squirming, and it just the grinding of the piano wire, and it is so terrible. And she takes off his left foot. It is gone. And the funny thing is, we get this side shot of her from outside the room. It's on like the patio or whatever through a glass door, and she just takes the foot and throws it at the door, and there's like this little blood mark left on it. And then she, looking excited, is going over to the other foot. But as she... Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. So sorry.
No, tell us about the foot. Tell us what you know.
Tell us what you know about the foot. No, so when she starts, first off, this whole scene, like I said, I knew about it. I don't like this kind of stuff, so I've avoided it. But what's so interesting is you actually don't see a lot. Like I said, you see the foot, and really you don't see much of the foot until like it's actually fully severed. And like I said, they show the actual severing part of it. But a lot of this is left up to your imagination, which is worse. Like I think that that's actually a really big tactic that they use in some of the best horror movies, like Rosemary's Baby. You never get to see what is in that crib, or all these sorts of things. So you actually get to see, like I said, we see this shot of her putting the needles in his eyes, and we hear him, but we don't see her putting them in there. We get a shot after she's done, and it shows the needles there, but it's never like we actually see what is happening. But this is what I think is important to note about the foot. She puts the tourniquets on. So those are the clamps that she's putting on, making sure that he doesn't bleed out. There's major arteries, and obviously if you amputate a foot, you're going to bleed out if you're not doing some sort of special precautions. But she puts a wire around it and she goes to start, and she gives him the same look that her ballet teacher gives to her before he burns her. It is the exact, like, I'm looking at what I'm doing. I look up at you. I give you this smile of, oh, this was going to be fun for me. And then she goes and she just does one swipe and it's just blood everywhere. And then, of course, he's screaming and she's got the giddiness like you talk about, Nox. But that's what I thought was so interesting, again, is the glee that she takes from this, but also that she mimics a lot of the same behavior of her abuser, which is something sadly that I have definitely dealt with and seen, where you have people who have been abused and they continue the cycle of abuse and repeating a lot of the same behaviors instead of trying to break that trauma.
So the left foot is cut off, removed, and she discards it, and she goes to start on his right foot. And this is when they hear Shigehiko get home. And he's calling out for his dad. And she gets that brief look of panic on her face. And then the camera changes to where we see Shigehiko walking into a room. And he looks down and sees his father. And then he's stunned. He's like, what's going on? And the door opens up behind him. Asami has crept away, and she's going to sneak up on him. But then we cut to another one of those visions for Aoyama. And it's back to that seaside resort in the hotel where they're in bed together. And the weird thing is that the way this plays out, it's like the Aoyama here is the Aoyama who has been tortured. I mean, he looks normal, but the way he's reacting to things is like he knows what Asami is. He knows what he's done. But this is Asami who's like, she adores him. She opened up to him. I get the implication this is like after they had sex. And she kind of repeats some of the things she said, and it's more of a tender tone here. And I'm just going to come out and say I do not understand the point of this scene.
It's one of those things of like, because again, I don't think that scene legitimately happened. I think she drugged him right before they had sex. And this instead looks at, hey, if this had actually been a genuinely loving relationship, if this had actually worked out, this kind of would have been the morning after or later in the evening, and we could have had these tender moments that we could know. But like you said, it's like at this point, Aoyama knows. But I think that was him, especially when he sees her approaching his son. It's like, what if we had actually had a good relationship that night? What if we had stayed together? That would have avoided all of this. It's kind of almost that bargaining stages of grief that we talk about, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But I think that's the point of the scene, is he's trying to imagine, like, no, she's not really like this. Look, we had this evening together. Oh, wait, we didn't have that evening together. But wouldn't it have been nice if we had? I don't know. That's how I took it.
But that scene seems to resolve, but then we cut back, and here's Asami chasing Shigehiko. She's got... we see her test her pepper spray before Shigehiko walks in, and then she comes up behind him with it, and like he, ducks out of the way to get dodge her initial blast at him, and he, takes off like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And she's just kind of, giggling a little as she chases after him. He charges up the stairs, trips a little bit when he gets to the top because she's right behind him, spraying at him. And they get to the top of the stairs, and she's, he's cowering, kind of curls up at the top of the stairs, and she's trying to get him with the pepper spray, and just with one kick, because reminder that Asami is a tiny little lady, he, rockets her through the air, down the stairs. She tumbles, lands at the bottom of the stairs, and we get this lovely close-up of her neck and that like you get gurgling and cracking noises, and her neck is very obviously broken. And Shigehiko comes downstairs, sees her, then steps over her to get to his father, and the father had meekly crawled after them, because the paralytic was starting to wear off to where he could kind of get a little bit of mobility, but he's still on the floor and he's barely able to talk. And Shigehiko's like, what's going on? What do we do? And all Aoyama manages to go is to call the police. And Shigehiko does and tells him the address. And then we get Aoyama, and he looks over and he, sees Asami there at the bottom of the stairs. And I think we're both kind of torn on how to take this, because she's repeating some of the things she said about her past and some of the things she said at the audition. And it's like the meek, the weak, doughy girl, who needs to be rescued thing as she dies.
Yeah, and I think that to me, it was Aoyama putting what he would want her to say, because I think he legitimately did love her. Again, I think he was looking more for a replacement than actually a genuine connection, but that's a whole other thing. But I think that the things that she says, like, oh, but you were so kind to me, and I was just looking for love, and you were there for me, and you were amazing. I think that's what he would want her to say. I think she is dead at this moment, especially with, like you had said, when she swallows, the way her neck caves in, it's like, yeah, there is no way she's going to have this very, very nice conversation talking to you about, oh, and you were so kind. Like, no, that girl's not talking at all. So yeah, I took it as it's all in Aoyama's head.
And upon my initial viewing of the movie, I kind of got the impression that was her, as she's dying, she's reverted to her bait performance, where she's, acting as the vulnerable girl to get attention. And, like it's her instinct kicks in, and as she dies, and that's, her, I don't know, preferred state? I don't know.
I think that would be I don't know what the word would be, like that's my baseline. Or I think baseline is definitely Psycho, but I feel like I'm talking a lot about serial killers in this movie. But when she's like, I just wanted to be with you, and I just love you. Like, again, I think that she sees this pain as love, and I don't know. It reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer, and I did not see Monster. I just haven't gotten to that at all. But some of the stuff that he did with cannibalism and killing people was he was afraid they would leave him. So if he ate parts of them, they'd be with him forever. And I feel like that's kind of with her, is she, is keeping them from leaving or doing these things. But for her, love is having power over somebody else and being able to degrade somebody else. So again, I don't think she would have been like, oh, I'm so sorry. I get where you're coming from. But the way that her neck, like, that's almost the second most graphic thing in this movie is the way that her neck moves. The first is still the foot. The foot is gross. But I don't think there's any way that she'd be able to talk. So again, I think it's Aoyama, like, oh, this is the person I fell in love with. This is how I picture her leaving. This is how, that's not who she really was.
And then camera goes back to Aoyama as he's on the floor. He's looking at her for a little bit, and then he kind of rolls onto his back and is looking up. And we get this narration about, choosing to continue on to live, pursuing happiness. And then we get the shot of young Asami in that apartment doing up her ballet slippers before we cut to the credits.
And again, I feel like whenever we see her as a little girl, it's supposed to be hope. And yes, Asami is dead at this time, but I think the hope is she's no longer in pain. She's no longer psychologically and physically suffering from the abuse that she has sustained in her life. So I think that's why they ended like that. Because she loved ballet, so they show her with the ballet too.
Yep. And that is Audition. Good movie. Definitely interesting to think about. Picking up a bit more on repeat viewings. Still not confident I fully understand what the point was, and considering how then we did research on it, and there's a lot of arguments over what it means, because there's people who view it from a feminist angle, and then there's people who are like, no, it's misogynist. And then you have the director and as well and the author of the book also saying it's like, it's not really a feminist angle thing.
And I think it was one of the people, the critic that I read, and I was like, yeah, no, I agree with them on this one. Everybody talks about it being like a female revenge story. And he stated in there, he's like, no, it can't be a female revenge story because she kills the dog and she killed another woman. Right. And they talked about how the woman's boyfriend's lover, which we're assuming is Asami was probably with him and then figured out that he had a girlfriend, killed them both. It's like, no, she killed a woman too. And it was out of a jealous rage. It wasn't to seek vengeance on men who have wronged women in the past, which I agree with. So again, I kind of view the movie as, I don't know, there's a lot of different layers to it, but that epitome of what happens when we don't have connections with others, what happens with that loneliness. So, Asami didn't have connections with her family. She was left with these horribly abusive people in her life. Oh, sorry, yawning. So she kind of created her own twisted version of love because she had never seen it before. And Aoyama was desperate, so he overlooked a lot of things that probably would have been red flags. Like, hey, maybe you shouldn't date this person. But yeah, that desperation, I think of, I don't want to be lonely, but I'm willing to put up with a lot, and I'm willing to do a lot in order to feel the connection, even if it's not a healthy one. I don't know. That's what I took away from the movie. Yeah, especially they say, well, everybody's lonely, so I kind of feel like they beat you over the head with a bat. I mean, how many times in this movie do they say, oh, everyone in Japan is lonely, everyone in Japan is miserable? Like, they say it like 7 or 8 times in the whole movie. And I also say it can't be a feminist revenge movie because she takes so much pleasure in hurting the men. Like, I don't know, the one that I can think of off the top of my head is Hard Candy, but I've heard similar things on the Lady Vengeance trilogy in Korean cinema, which I have not seen, so I can't really talk to it. But a lot of times in these female revenge type movies, the woman doesn't take pleasure in the killing. She's not happy to be hurting other people. She's not happy to be doing the things that she's doing. She does it because it needs to get done. And again, the movie Hard Candy, if you've ever seen it, yeah, there's a little bit of, I think, how do I say? I don't want to say joy because that's not the right word, but like, oh, okay, I'm getting the job done and I'm happy I'm getting this job done. But, you never have Elliot Page just gloating about like, oh, isn't this horrible for you? Throughout the movie. So I feel like her glee and the sadism that she took in a lot of it also makes us not fall into the feminist revenge category.
But yeah, Audition, fun. I'm probably, it's and so if you've seen anything like Hostel or Saw, this movie is probably not going to make you squirm as much as it did back in, it came out in 1999. I don't think it came out in the US until 2000. Because this movie has an interesting story on how it got made, but it kind of it is a foundation that got built upon by other films. Eli Roth obviously took his inspiration. We can just flat out say Eli Roth did, because not only did he sing its praises in that Bravo special all those years ago, but when he made Hostel, Takashi Miike is cameos in the movie. He's one of the gentlemen at the torture club, and I missed that the first time I see the movie because I don't think I knew who Takashi Miike was when I saw Hostel. So, but there is this Asian man there. It's like, okay, that was Takashi Miike. Oh wow, that interesting.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that this movie has a reputation for being uncomfortable, but again, this is why we're doing this entire series on horror movies. Is okay, so what is scarier, the fact that we have this woman who is going around and hurting people like this, or the fact that we live in a world that tries not to have connection or have empathy for other people if they can't do something for us? Which lens are we going to look through? Haha, isn't that where we got the title of the show? Okay.
Oh, we're clever.
Ah.
But so yeah, going back is like, so I think you saw the same special I did. We didn't watch it together, did we? I think we watched it separately, where they mentioned Audition. You had Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, what's her name? She was an editor for Fangoria magazine, and she was singing the movie's praises. And but that was I didn't get into Japanese horror films until the Ring remake released in America, and after that I checked out the original Japanese Ring, loved it, liked the sequel, Ring 2, but loved Ring 0. I kind of like Spiral, but Spiral was different. Anyone who knows, but the funny thing is that this is from the same movie studio as the original Ring, and Ring had just come out. It was very successful. And I think the way it worked is that when they released Ring they wanted to release Ring in Korea, but they couldn't. So they kind of made a Korean version, I think is how it worked out. And with cooperation with the Korean company, they wanted to make another movie, and but they didn't want to do one that was supernatural. So they optioned the book that was written in 1997, Audition. And they wanted new blood, because Takashi Miike, he'd done like over 24 movies by that point, most of them direct to video, but he had a few successful stuff. Specifically, it's called Blues Harp, because he does gangster movies, Yakuza, stuff like that. And Blues Harp was like this really emotional, like more women involved than usual in the Yakuza movie. Like there's love triangles, dude sleeping with the boss's wife, stuff like that. And it was really successful. And like right before he did Audition, he did what's it called, the Black Society trilogy, which is touched on like it had like race commentary, because you had Chinese people in Japan who are part of the criminal underworld, and then you had like a Japanese guy in China, and then the third film had like I think Chinese and Japanese people live in Japan that wanted to move to Brazil. I have not seen any of these movies. These are, I'm kind of got like a cliff notes. It's like, here's what Takashi Miike was known for before Audition. So Audition was his first horror film. I had not seen Audition until this past November, heard of it, but I had seen Ichi the Killer, and if anyone has seen that movie, it's like, yeah, he took to horror very well.
So I think horror is just such a fun genre to explore themes that you wouldn't normally explore in your day-to-day life, or to explore them in a way that seem more palatable. I think it's so weird to say more palatable when we're talking about cutting off people's feet with piano wire, but it's a thing.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, I can imagine it is definitely a different outlet for him, where he gets to do different things. But I'm still interested in seeing the rest, the rest of his filmography, because all this stuff sounds just interesting. It's just that there's not enough time in the day, and I just. But to talk about the other people who contributed to the movie, so you have the writer for the movie, the gentleman. Daisuke Tengen, interesting fellow. So he was, right before Audition came out, he was known for, he helped his father write the film The Eel, which had won the Golden Palm Award at the Cannes Film Festival. And the other interesting thing about his father, this happened after Audition, obviously, is that there was a, I don't know, I guess you call it like an international anthology film that was 11 different stories about the 9/11. And there were segments, each segment was made from the point of view of a different country. You had a filmmaker from that country make it. And the segment from Japan was, Daisuke Tengen helped write it with his father again. And it was a big deal. And I had heard about it before, have not seen it, but I kind of want to see it now.
And there were a few other things that you said, though, that were different in the book than in the movie. Did you want to touch on those things? Because I did not do all that research.
No. Well, okay. I have not read the book. It's so there's from what I understand, some of the changes the movie made was to avoid a plot hole, because apparently the book has a major plot hole because Asami has a lot more victims, and apparently she typically left her victims alive. Like she did her business, cut them up, severed feet, and then I think the implication is that they repented and she was satisfied, but she let them go, because I think it's supposed to be during the first date with Aoyama. There is a gentleman. He's a younger gentleman. I think he's supposed to be around Asami's age. He is wheeled in a wheelchair by his mother into the restaurant, and he's got the severed feet. This is why he's in the wheelchair. And he just sees Asami and he freaks out. And I think this was removed from the movie for two reasons. One, it kind of blows the load early, because you don't want to know Asami's modus operandi that early into the film. But also, if she's leaving victims alive and just outgoing about their lives, how has no one pointed to her and she's been arrested and stuff? I mean, you could probably think of an excuse, but it's like it not very realistic.
And I kind of think too, with like what you just said, with they repented sort of a thing. Again, I did not read the book, but I think it would be interesting to more look at it as like she got tired of them, right? Like, oh, you're no fun anymore. You're not giving me that feeling of I have power and I'm winning and that sort of thing. So she discards them. Obviously, she doesn't kill them, but I'm wondering if she wouldn't do that because she feels like they're beneath her. So why am I going to waste my time doing that on you? But there are people who can go through attacks like that, and they're so afraid of the person retaliating or finding out about them or things like that that they don't go to the police, or their memory can be impacted from the trauma of everything that's happened. Like, it is a real thing. I actually had this conversation with a client this last week when someone told her that trauma can impact your memory, and they were so upset to learn about that. And I'm like, well, doesn't necessarily mean that it's impacted your memory, but it may have. Like, it is a real issue.
And a reminder, I'm going off of secondhand information here, so some of this stuff is like worded. I'm going off of several different accounts, and they're kind of slightly different wording. So I'm wondering, I should probably read the book myself to see. But one thing that seems to agree on is there's no man in a bag. That is completely invented for the movie, and the in the book, the record producer. He is a victim, but he dies of a heart attack while she's torturing him.
Like I said, I think this whole thing was about loneliness and the continuing cycles of abuse sorts of things. Yeah. But I think having him in the bag, I think, just showed that she is holding on to that connection. Like, I'm actually almost a little bit curious if she would have killed him off if she had brought Aoyama home, like he would have replaced that guy. But we never get to see. Although I think that also just put a really horrible connotation in my head. Does that guy just starve to death in the bag? Like, maybe we should hope that she killed him before she went to go get Aoyama, because that would be awful if nobody knows he's actually there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we want to take the fact that he doesn't exist in the book, well, maybe he doesn't exist in the movie, and she doesn't really have a guy in the bag. It's just an emotional projection of her own, and Aoyama somehow picks up on that, and he has the vision of him, and Sami, explains and spills her heart out and talking about this, and he's not real, but they're getting the feelings.
The only thing that I would counter with you is, how did they find extra body parts at the murder scene?
Well, no one mentioned that in the book, so I don't know. But the rest of the changes I'm reading are kind of just things playing out differently and making one, Asami is a bit more brutal, and two, her death is also a bit more brutal. Because the primary example, and if animal torture, the dog's fate is more graphic in the book. She uses the dog to essentially give Aoyama a preview of what she's about to do to him. And yeah, it's awful. But the other thing is that Asami does not break her neck when she's kicked down the stairs. She is injured, but she continues to chase after Shigehiko, and he actually winds up killing her with an axe.
Bro.
I know. The book was brutal. So, I mean, and I don't know, maybe I could see how it's... One, you can't do that with the dog in the movie. That's just like, everyone would immediately... I mean, it's bad enough what she does with the dog in the movie. You do more than that, and it's like, no one's going to be sympathizing with her. But then, and with her death, it's like, you kind of... One, it's kind of like having to, stage the axe attack scene, and her, chasing after Shigehiko while she's injured. And I think they did it more elegantly in the movie, and I think it works better. But this is an opinion of a guy who has not read the book, so just take that for what it is.
And again, I think that that's one of the themes too. And again, going with connection and empathy and all of that, is I think, I made the comment that Ray, or Ray, I don't know. The housekeeper's been taking care of Aoyama for so long that he's just not even paying attention to the world around him anymore. Which I think is also a little bit of lack of connection and reality. But I think that that's what almost makes this movie tragic, might be the word. Is Aoyama legitimately wanted to marry her. He wasn't trying to take advantage of her and then dump her and all of were his methods sus? Absolutely. But it's just one of those things that I feel like they're this innocent family who really, the son and Aoyama had the connection the entire time, right? They had a great relationship. They were able to talk to each other about everything. And then they got caught up in the trauma that this woman has gone through randomly, and it's rocks their whole world. I think it just kind of shows how fragile everything around us really is.
But yeah, so... But that's what we're left with. I kind of interested in reading the book, but I still haven't read The Ritual, and I don't know if I'm going to, just because of how different it is. But good movie. Definitely. We took our suggestion given to us, even though it was already on our list, and it's like, hey, let's just do that next. And we watched it, and definitely had a lot to talk about. But unfortunately didn't get to make the video just because, life, holidays, sickness, technical problems. But, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed our coverage of it. I don't have anything else to add. Although does amuse me because I did not recognize her when we watched Audition, but I did when I checked out her IMDb. That Ahi Shina, who portrays Asami, plays the main character in Tokyo Gore Police, which should probably watch that with you sometime. I'm not sure you'll like it because it is a weird movie.
Probably not the weirdest one that you've made me watch, so that'll probably be fine.
Are you thinking of Mandy?
Still not the weirdest movie that you've made me watch.
Mad God?
Huh?
Mad God?
God, that movie was really good. It's just nightmare fuel and made me uncomfortable the entire time. Like, I don't know. There's some weird stuff that I've seen even without you. But yeah.
Well, I don't know if Tokyo Gore Police is something worth talking about. I mean, we could probably find something, but we'll watch it at some point. Maybe we'll make a episode about it. It could be fun.
I think that'll be interesting because my understanding it's a little bit of a schlock fest. So it's like, yeah. What psychological evaluation shall I put in here? I have no idea.
Well, I'm sure we could find something. It just may not be, as rich of content as, Audition or The Ritual or other movies.
Well, like I said, we have a list of movies that we kind of plan to go through and evaluate. But if you have something that you guys want us to take a look at, please feel free to put it on here. I think Nox and I had the discussion before we started this channel that we do reserve the right to refuse certain suggestions. There is one movie in my brain that I have heard about that I refuse to watch, and I will never watch it, and you cannot beg me to watch it. So, yeah. But feel free to suggest things, and if it's something we want to take a look at, we will. We'll try and see.
And, we're also open to suggestions on how to improve. I'm going to put more effort into this, hopefully going forward. I hope to have an episode each month. I'm also going to redouble my effort into editing these down to just smaller, more, digestible videos. Especially since we actually have friends and family who'd be interested in watching it, but they're not the kind to sit there and listen to us talk about movies for 2 hours or more.
They would probably sit and listen to me around the dinner table, but not on YouTube. So.
But thanks for watching. Anyone who stopped by to watch, thanks for commenting. Anyone who stops by to comment. We're going to keep on keeping on, and we will see you in our next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. We appreciate you.